everyone, welcome to this update video. I trust and hope you're doing fantastic this morning. And so we're going to be talking about what is happening across the Atlantic. And so we're going to be looking at the current disturbances, and as we switch to the National Hurricane Center's update from earlier this morning, here we can see that both of these systems are highlighted in orange, indicating a medium chance of development. Now, that disturbance over the Yucatan right now is given a 60% chance of development through the next 7 days and a 40% chance through the next 2 days. So by this weekend, we could actually see it manage to become a tropical depression, since environmental conditions are forecast to be favorable to actually allow that to happen. So this is an Alberto-like scenario that we're going to see unfold over the coming days, where this is basically what we saw happen with Alberto. A disturbance, it made its way into the southern Gulf, loitered there for a bit, gained some strength, became a tropical storm, and then moved in. And by the way, Alberto has dissipated, so that was anticipated. Once it made landfall and it moved over northern Mexico, it just the terrain just ripped it apart into nothing. But there's been a lot of flooding rains, and unfortunately around 4 persons have lost their lives. So that is a very unfortunate scenario, the kind of news that I personally hate to have to talk about, because it's kind of the worst part about these systems, knowing that they're so dangerous and the fact that people actually lose their lives. And that is why I always implore safety, because that is the priority. And then as we look to that next disturbance heading up to the southeastern coast, we've been talking about this one for some time, Invest 92L. So that was the designation given to it, as it has a chance of development, but it's a little blob out there. This is as of earlier this morning, the satellite imagery, and we may see it become a short-lived system, but regardless, it's likely to produce some rains and even some thunderstorms as well, windy conditions for parts of the southeastern states. So Florida, potentially parts of southern Georgia, and even towards the southernmost part of South Carolina. So that is what is expected of that system. And we may get some recon data. The hurricane hunters, they may fly in later this morning and actually assess the system. Not a guarantee though. But overall, we got a lot of moisture in the Caribbean. Let's talk about that. So yesterday, there were some severe afternoon thunderstorms in parts of Jamaica. Severe meaning not like, U.S. severe weather, not like that where there are tornadoes or anything, but a lot of heavy rainfall, very strong winds that were enough to actually cause down trees, hit out the power for some areas, resulting in some flooding as well, some level of flooding across some areas. So I can personally attest to that, because, I was out at work when it happened, and so it was absolutely insane. So parts of Jamaica experienced those intense thunderstorms last evening, and even now we can see a lot of moisture in the Western Caribbean associated with the disturbance in the area. But as we head further to the east, it is a contrast, as we're not seeing much activity at all. So let's look at the rainfall forecast for today. Here we can see very colorful around Central America as anticipated. So for parts of Jamaica, there could be some additional thunderstorms this afternoon and some heavy downpours as well. Similar thing for the Cayman Islands, going to Mexico, as well as Belize, parts of Guatemala, as well as Salvador, Honduras, even the offshore islands, the Bay Islands, the Keys, offshore Belize as well, going down to parts of Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. There could be some periods of heavy rain. And then for northern South America, thanks to the intertropical convergence zone, which is where the trade winds of the north and south meet and they converge, rise. When warm air rises, it cools and condenses to form clouds, and eventually we get lots of thunderstorms and rain within this area, especially the summer months. And that is what has been happening across some areas. And then for parts of Trinidad, there could be some additional downpours today. And there's also a tropical wave that's moving in toward the west, so that's going to help to enhance the rain eventually. ABC Islands should be a bit on the drier side today. And then for most of the Lesser Antilles, the rest of the Lesser Antilles, there could be some showers passing by at times. Similar thing for the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, going up to Cuba, the Bahamas, and Turks and Caicos Islands as well. So that is it in terms of the rainfall forecast. And so let's go ahead to the wind forecast. So it has been quite windy across some areas. Winds going up to 25 knots with higher gusts. So it's going to be a similar story throughout today. For parts of the Lesser Antilles, ABC Island sections of Jamaica, especially in the southern parishes, and toward the Yucatan, the vicinity of Mexico, Belize, and the Gulf as well, up to the southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos. Winds are going to be kicking up today. So again, those winds up to 20 knots or so with higher gusts. Now, as we take a look at the sea surface temperature for the Western Atlantic, temperatures are well on their way, very, very supportive to allow for development to happen. So especially in the southern Gulf where we had Alberto and where that next disturbance is headed, temperatures are very much conducive. And once other environmental conditions are, favorable, we could definitely see some strengthening. That's going to be fuel to the fire. And I mean, for many areas already drenched and soaked with a lot of rain, it's going to be a similar thing again as we head into the next couple of days. And models are definitely showing that area of low pressure as we head into tomorrow on Saturday. There we can see it with the GFS. And by the way, all these colors represent the moisture, and that L is that area of low pressure. So we can see it on the GFS model. Then as we head to the Euro, also seeing a similar thing. And then the icon, we're seeing it again. So all of these models are expecting that the system is going to be weak. It's not going to be very strong, but we know that a strong system isn't needed for there to be substantial impacts. And that is what we could see. The rain, the water overall with tropical systems is always the main focus, the main threat, whether it be the storm surge, especially with those strong hurricanes, the very strong winds inundating coastal areas, pushing all that water on shore, and the torrential rains. So that is the main problem, the main concern with these tropical systems that try to get themselves together. And we're going to see that scenario again unfolded in the Gulf of Mexico this weekend. And now, finally, we're looking at the dust forecast. So let's not forget about the Saharan dust. We've got some that is moving through for parts of the Western Caribbean, but another big plume is headed our way as we head into this weekend, go into early next week. We can see that next big plume of dust that is going to be blanketing the eastern islands, headed to the northern islands of the Caribbean as well, and very dense dust to be stretching from the Sahara Desert to North Africa and across the main development region. And this is an enemy to the tropical waves. This is what essentially helps to inhibit development, because this dust, it helps to bring along with it a very dry, stable environment. That is not what the tropical waves need. They need an unstable environment to allow for the rising air motion so that those thunderstorms can develop and get going. So this overall, it helps to inhibit tropical cyclone development. It helps to limit activity. And that's one of the reasons the tropical waves out there are not developing right now. And one of the main reasons as well why, even though there are up to 60 tropical waves, 65 that emerge every single year, only a small percentage of those actually develop into tropical cyclones, because for the most part, conditions don't allow for the vast majority of them to actually get themselves together. So aside from our two disturbances in the Western Atlantic, there's nothing else to watch as of right now. However, we're bound to see a pattern change in the very near future, which I'll talk more about in future videos. So that is what I wanted to share with you guys, and I hope that you found this video this morning to be informative. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll respond when I can, and remember to always be weatherwise.